I did not flinch. I did not look away. I stood there in the middle of the Hartfield and Cole annual gala, the one my husband had dragged me to every November for 11 years, and I listened to him tell a room full of people that leaving me was the smartest thing he had ever done. He was holding a glass of scotch. He was laughing, and he did not even see me standing 6 feet behind him. Let me back up. My name is Claire. I am 39 years old. For 11 years, I was married to a man named Spencer. He was charming the way certain men are charming, loudly, selectively, and always in the direction of whoever could do something for him. I was a forensic accountant. I worked for a mid-sized firm in downtown Chicago. Spencer was a senior partner at a commercial real estate company, the kind of man who wore cufflinks to breakfast and called it setting intentions. We met when I was 27. We married when I was 28. I thought I was lucky. For most of those 11 years, I believed we were building something. We had a house in Lincoln Park. We had a joint investment account. We had dinners with other couples where everyone laughed a little too loudly and nobody talked about anything real. I cooked on Sundays. He watched football. He forgot my birthday twice and made up for it with flowers that were delivered to the office and felt more like a performance than an apology. But I told myself that was just how long marriages worked. You stopped being sparkling. You became solid instead. What I did not know, what I did not find out until the spring of last year, was that my husband had been sleeping with my younger sister for 8 months. Her name is Tatum. She is 32. She has always been the kind of person who fills every room she walks into, not because she is warm, but because she is loud and pretty, and she has never once in her life had to try very hard for anything. Growing up, I was the quiet one, the studious one, the one who stayed in on Friday nights and built a career from scratch while Tatum borrowed money from our parents until she was 26 and called it finding herself. I loved her. I genuinely loved her. She was my sister. I found out the way people always find out, not in some dramatic confrontation, but in something small and ordinary and devastating. A hotel receipt. Spencer had left his email open on the shared laptop we used for taxes. I was looking for a PDF. I saw a confirmation for a reservation at the Waldorf Astoria in downtown Chicago, booked under his name, for a weekend in March when he had told me he was in Cincinnati for a conference. I did not say anything that day. I am a forensic accountant. I know how to look at numbers and find the thing that does not add up. I know how to be patient. I closed the laptop and I sat very still for about 4 minutes and then I went back to work. Over the next 3 weeks I found everything. He had been careful but not careful enough. There was a second credit card I did not know about, a travel rewards card opened 2 years prior, with charges at restaurants I had never been to, a spa in Wicker Park, 2 weekend getaways, and a piece of jewelry from a boutique on Oak Street that I had never received. I pulled the jewelry store's website. It was a bracelet. Tatum had worn it to our mother's birthday dinner in February. She said she had bought it for herself. I remember watching her across the table that night, cutting her chicken, laughing at something our father said, and feeling a coldness settle into my chest that has not fully left me since. I did not confront them immediately. I needed to be ready. I called a divorce attorney named Ms. Voss, a woman I had heard about through a colleague, the kind of attorney other attorneys are afraid of, and I made an appointment for a Tuesday morning. I told Spencer I had a client meeting. He did not ask follow-up questions, he never did. Ms. Voss told me to document everything. I already had. She told me to open a separate bank account and begin moving a portion of my direct deposit into it, quietly, legally, within my rights as an individual. I did that too. She told me to make no sudden moves. I was already good at that. 2 months after I found the hotel receipt, Spencer came home one evening, poured himself a drink, and told me he wanted a divorce. He sat across from me at our kitchen island, the one we had picked out together at a showroom in Evanston, white quartz, his idea, and he told me that he had not been happy for years, that he had tried, that he had grown into someone different and he needed space to figure out who that person was. He did not mention Tatum. He did not mention the bracelet or the Waldorf or the second credit card. He spoke in the careful, rehearsed language of a man who had been coached, possibly by Tatum, possibly by his own ego, to believe he was delivering this news with dignity. I asked him one question. Is there someone else? He looked me in the eye and said no. I nodded. I said I needed a few days to process. He looked relieved, the way people look when they expected a storm and got a clear sky instead, and I think in that moment he decided I was going to make this easy for him. He was wrong about that. The divorce proceedings took 7 months. Spencer had assumed correctly that I would fight for the house and the joint investment account. What he had not anticipated was that I had already retained the better attorney, already had documentation of the hidden credit card, and had already filed a request for full financial disclosure that his own attorney called, unusually, thorough. Ms. Voss was thorough because I had given her everything she needed. Spencer's attorney kept asking for extensions. Ms. Voss kept denying them. What came out during discovery was not just the affair. It was the fact that Spencer had been using our joint investment account, which held a significant portion of my earnings over 11 years, to partially fund what he and his business partner had structured as a private real estate holding company. The company had assets. The company had income. The company existed, in part because of money I had contributed to our household, while Spencer redirected funds I believed were going into our shared future. I did not have to prove the affair in court. Illinois is a no-fault divorce state. But I did have to establish the financial picture, and the financial picture was very clear. The settlement took the house. The settlement took his share of the investment account. The settlement included a cash payment for the value of the marital assets he had obscured, calculated to the penny by a forensic accountant, which, as it happened, was something I knew a little bit about. Spencer did not take it well. He signed because he had no choice, but he did not take it well. By the time the settlement was finalized, he and Tatum were living together in a rental in Wicker Park. I know this because my mother told me in the careful way she told me everything during that period, gently, with apologies built into every sentence. My mother had not known about the affair until after I filed. When she found out, she did not speak to Tatum for 3 months. My father still has not called Spencer since. My family is not dramatic about these things. They are simply quiet in a way that makes their position very clear. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in the West Loop. I kept the investment account. I kept my career. I started running again, something I had stopped doing somewhere around year 4 of the marriage when I was always too tired or too busy or too focused on holding everything together to remember that I was also a person. I did not think about Spencer very much. I thought about Tatum more. I thought about the years of conversations we'd had, about our parents, about relationships, about what we each wanted from our lives. And I tried to figure out at what point she had decided that I was something she could just take from. I never found a satisfying answer. I eventually stopped looking for one. That brings me to the Hartfield & Cole Gala. I was there because a client of mine, a development firm I had done compliance work for, had purchased a table and invited me as a thank you for the past year's work. I almost did not go. It was a Thursday night in November, and I was tired and my apartment was warm, and I had a book I was halfway through. But my colleague Deb said I should go, that it was good for visibility, that I had spent enough Thursday nights with that book already, and she was not wrong. So I went. I was standing near the bar, holding a glass of sparkling water, talking to a man from the client's board about a zoning issue in the South Loop, when I heard the laugh. Spencer's laugh is specific. It is slightly too loud and it ends on a high note, like he wants to make sure everyone around him knows he found something funny. I had lived with that laugh for 11 years. My body recognized it before my brain did. I turned slightly. He was maybe 20 feet away, standing with 2 men I did not recognize and 1 woman I did, a colleague of his from the real estate company. He was tan. He had a new watch. He looked from a distance exactly like the man I had married, which is to say, he looked like someone who had learned to perform ease so effectively that he had almost convinced himself it was real. I did not approach him. I was not there for him. I turned back to my conversation. About 40 minutes later, I went to get a glass of water from a different bar station near the east side of the room. There was a short line. I was checking my phone when I heard Spencer's voice, close behind me. "You have got to be kidding me," he said. I put my phone in my clutch. I turned around. He was standing with the same colleague, and now also with Tatum, who was holding a cocktail and wearing a dress I did not recognize and looking at me with an expression I could not quite read. Surprise, maybe, or something closer to calculation. "Claire," Spencer said. He said it like the word itself was an inconvenience. "Spencer," I said. There was a pause. The colleague looked between us and took a small step back. "This is interesting," he said. "I didn't think Hartfield events were really your scene. I was invited by a client," I said. "Right." He nodded slowly the way he used to nod when he was trying to seem thoughtful. "Still at the firm?" "Still at the firm." Tatum had not said anything. She was looking at a point slightly past my left shoulder. Spencer took a small sip of his scotch and then, in a voice that was almost conversational, said, "You know, I ran into someone from your office last month. He mentioned you'd been passed over for partner again." I looked at him. "Third time," he said. "That's rough." This was not true. I had been offered a partnership track earlier that year and was actively negotiating the terms, but Spencer did not know that because Spencer had stopped being someone with accurate information about my life the moment I stopped sharing it with him. I said. He smiled. It was the smile of a man who had decided the score was in his favor. "I'll be honest with you, Claire. I think you're better off where you are. Partner would be a lot of pressure. Some people just aren't built for that level." Tatum finally looked at me. There was something in her face, not guilt, exactly, but a kind of bracing, like she was waiting for me to react. I did not react. "How's the Wicker Park apartment?" I asked. The smile shifted, just slightly. "It's fine," he said. "We're actually looking at buying something. In Lincoln Park, actually. Nice neighborhood." He glanced at me when he said it. He wanted me to know he was replacing what I'd taken. "That's great," I said. "Lincoln Park's wonderful." There was a beat of silence. Spencer's colleague had now fully removed herself from the conversation, which I respected. "You seem very calm," Spencer said. "I am calm," I said. "That's always been your thing, hasn't it? It was not a question. Ice water in your veins." "You know, Tatum actually said that, said she never understood how you could be so." He paused, searching for the word removed. "Like nothing ever touched you." I looked at my sister. She looked back at me and then looked away. "Things touch me," I said. "I'm just particular about which things I let change me." Spencer opened his mouth to say something else, and that is when a woman appeared at my elbow. Her name was Gwen. She was a senior partner at a firm that had recently retained my company for an audit project, and she was exactly the kind of person Spencer spent his entire career trying to get into a conversation with. Well-connected, third-generation Chicago real estate, the kind of social currency that Spencer had always chased. "Claire," Gwen said warmly, touching my arm. "I've been looking for you. I wanted to introduce you to someone. Do you have a minute?" "Of course," I said. I turned to Spencer. "Enjoy the rest of your evening," and I walked away. What happened after that? What Spencer did not see, because he was not the kind of man who followed up on things he didn't control, was that Gwen introduced me to her brother-in-law, who was the managing partner of a firm that was expanding its forensic accounting division and looking for someone to head it up. We talked for 45 minutes. He asked if I was open to a conversation. I said I was. What Spencer also did not know, what he had no way of knowing because he had spent the past year focused entirely on the version of my life he had constructed in his own head, was that 3 weeks before the gala, I had been contacted by the IRS's Criminal Investigation Division. They were not interested in me. They were interested in Spencer's business partner, a man named Aldrich, who had been under a quiet investigation for 18 months related to the real estate holding company. The same holding company that Spencer and he had built together, the same one I had uncovered during our divorce proceedings, the same one I had documented with the kind of detail that only a forensic accountant would think to preserve. When my attorney and I had worked through the financial disclosures during the divorce, we had submitted everything to the court. Everything. The discrepancies in the holding company's reported income, the transactions that did not match the supporting documentation, the pattern of payments that moved money in a direction that had no clean business explanation. The court had used it to calculate my settlement. Someone else had apparently used it for something more. I had received a call from an agent, Agent Mercer. She said her name was, asking if I would be willing to speak with them. I said yes. I met with them twice before the gala. I answered their questions carefully and honestly. I gave them copies of what I had already submitted to the court, because it was already public record. I did not know exactly what they were building. I am not an investigator, but I had been doing forensic accounting for 13 years. I knew what it looked like when someone was piecing a case together, and I knew what the pieces I had given them were worth. The night after the gala, Spencer called me. I did not recognize the number at first. He had gotten a new phone, but when I picked up and heard his voice, something in me went very still in a way that felt different from all the other times I had been still. He was not shouting. That surprised me. He was using the low, controlled voice he used when he was genuinely frightened. "Aldrich got a call today," he said. "From federal investigators. They're asking about the holding company." "Okay," I said. "Claire." A pause. "Did you? Was there something in the documents you submitted? During the divorce?" Everything I submitted was accurate and legally required, I said. You and your attorney reviewed all of it. That's not what I'm asking. I know what you're asking, I said, and I've answered it. There was a long silence. This could affect me, he said. You understand that? I understand that the financial disclosures I submitted during our divorce were entirely correct, I said. If there's something in them that's relevant to an investigation, that's a matter for the investigators and for your attorney. We were married for 11 years, he said. I did not say anything to that. He stopped. I thought maybe you could talk to them. Tell them. Tell them what? Spencer? Another silence. Never mind, he said. Okay, I said. I just need you to know that this is going to get complicated. For you, I said. It might get complicated for you. He hung up. I set my phone down on my kitchen counter and I stood there for a moment, looking out the window at the street below. It was a clear night. November in Chicago, which usually means cold and gray and the particular loneliness of the city going dark at 4:30 in the afternoon, but that night there was something almost still about it. The streetlights were orange. A cab went by. I thought about the kitchen island, the white quartz, his idea. I thought about Tatum's bracelet. I thought about 100 Sunday mornings and 100 dinners with people I barely knew and 100 small moments where I had told myself, this is fine, this is what solid looks like. This is what you chose. And then I thought, I did choose this. And then I chose differently. And I am still here. Spencer's name appeared in the Tribune 3 months later, not as the primary subject but as an associated party in a piece about the federal investigation into Aldrich's company. The article was brief. It mentioned that a civil asset review was underway and that several individuals connected to the holding company had been asked to cooperate. His LinkedIn went quiet around the same time. The profile is still up, but the last post was from 10 months ago. I do not check it often. The Lincoln Park property they were looking at buying fell through. My mother mentioned it once carefully, the way she mentions everything carefully these days. I said that was too bad and changed the subject. The conversation with Gwen's brother-in-law turned into a formal offer 4 weeks after the gala. I accepted in January. I am now the head of the forensic accounting division at a firm with offices in Chicago, New York, and Seattle. My title has the word partner in it. The third time Spencer said that word to me, it was to mock me. The word looks different on a business card. Tatum called me in February. It was the first time we had spoken since before I filed for divorce, which was almost 2 years. I picked up because I was curious, I think, more than anything else. She said she was sorry. She said it quickly and flatly, the way you say something you have been rehearsing but are not sure you mean. She said things had been hard. She said Spencer was not who she thought he was. I told her I appreciated the call. She asked if we could have coffee sometime. I told her I would think about it. I have not called her back. I am not sure I will. That is not a door I have closed. I am just not ready to walk through it yet, and I am not going to force myself before I am. I have spent enough years doing things before I was ready because someone else needed me to move faster than I was able to. I am not in a rush anymore. My apartment in the West Loop has a window that faces east. In the mornings when I run now, 4 days a week, 6 miles, something I had forgotten I was capable of, I come back and shower and stand in front of that window with my coffee and watch the city come on. The trains, the lights in the office buildings, the slow ordinary business of people beginning their days. There is nothing dramatic about it. It is just a window and a cup of coffee and a city that does not care about my history. That is exactly what I needed it to be. Spencer made his choices. Tatum made hers. The holding company made everyone's lives more complicated in ways that are still unfolding and that I am no longer responsible for understanding. I made mine too, every single one of them.